Applying rhythm game mechanics to other game genres is incredibly fascinating, as my love for music in video game soundtracks becomes the forefront of the game rather than something in the background to enhance the experience. We've seen many rhythm games hit the scene, many of which are widely popular. But when the core of a rhythm game gets fused with another genre, I can't help myself but look deeper into what the devs are cooking. Games like Everhood and Infinite Guitars are two good examples of this. Everhood takes the hectic nature of bullet hells and combines it with rhythm elements, having you survive by dodging and hopping over attacks that are all timed to the music. Infinite Guitars takes the nature of traditional JRPGs and attaches actual rhythm minigames to attacks that are tied to the background music. And the enemies in the combats and the overworlds also attack to the current track. There are plenty of other games to do this sort of thing, but there's a specific merging of rhythm game mechanics with another genre that I found myself involved with for about a year now. The realm of rhythm shooters. The combination of the rhythm game with the genre of FPS, specifically the subgenre of movement shooters, creates the rhythm shooter. Games in which all of your actions, shooting, dashing, reloading, and etc. are tied to the beat of the background music. It's something that is genius, and surprisingly wasn't explored until the release of BPM, Bullets Per Minute, in 2020. Before this, we had already seen games like Crypt of the Necrodancer, Just Beats and Shapes, and fucking Patapon, God I love fucking Patapon, start experimenting with combining rhythm game mechanics within another genre, so it makes sense that eventually this idea would come to fruition. Still, it's slightly surprising to me that it took so long. I won't spend much time on the history of the rhythm shooter or BPM itself, as I've already done this, and won't be treading over word ground, as the purpose of this video is to talk about the newest entries into the rhythm shooter space. If you'd like to learn more about BPM, the somewhat brief history of the rhythm shooter, and as a bonus, the history of rhythm games and FPS games as well, check out this video now or after you finish this one. It's a bit dated in terms of quality, as I feel like I've gotten much better at editing and writing, but the information provided is still valid. I do briefly talk about the two games I'll be talking about in this video, but to a lesser degree. And now that both games are now publicly available, the next generation of rhythm shooters
is now open.
Kicking us off with the second ever game to release into the rhythm shooter genre, third if you want to be technical, but I addressed this in my previous video, we have Metal Hellsinger. Released on September 15th, 2022, developed by The Outsiders and published by Funcom, Metal Hellsinger exploded onto the scene, achieving popularity that BPM, its predecessor, never was able to achieve. This game stood strong, as it had achieved many nominations and heavy recognition for its amazing soundtrack, which featured many popular vocalists from real-life rock and metal groups, with the music being composed by a musical duo of Elvira Bjorkman and Nicholas Hjertberg, also known as Two Feathers. They had done an amazing job with the soundtrack of the game, having me actively listen to it on YouTube on multiple occasions, and with the newest DLC, Dream of the Beast, having been recently released, the lineup of absolutely headbanger track continues to grow. Now, going back to what I said before about BPM. BPM, although founded the genre, it would be Metal Hellsinger that refined it as well as popularized it. It had taken several things about BPM, improved upon it, and had made an experience that again pulled many into enjoying and some even loving the rhythm shooter genre and premise. I, coming off of BPM, had tried the game's demo during Steam Next Fest June, and was hooked. I had even gone back and played the demo multiple times to try and beat my score, as well as just simply enjoy the great rhythm shooting goodness that was the game's core gameplay. But before we get into that, allow me to give a brief summary of the game's story, and don't worry, I'll avoid spoilers for those who may be interested in the game's pretty good story. In Metal Hellsinger, you'll take control of the silent protagonist who carries the title of the Unknown, who traverses through hell in search of the ruler of hell, the Red Judge, to get her stolen voice back and escape the hell she's been trapped within. With her arsenal of weapons and her talking skull companion Paz, who narrates the game in her actions, she'll traverse through the hell slaying hordes of demons to get back all that was taken from her. Now, when it comes to Metal Hellsinger's core gameplay, it's quite standard for what a rhythm shooter is expected to play like. All of your actions, shooting, dashing, reloading, and specials all need to be timed to the beat of the music, meaning you not only are having to master the game's movement and aim, but now you're having to do this while keeping beat. If you are unable to keep up or fall behind, not only will you lose your streak, which builds up to grant you bonuses based on how high your streak is, but depending on how off you were, your inputted action will just not occur. When it comes to your arsenal of demon slaying tools, you'll have access to 2 of your chosen weapons, Paz, and your trusty sword. Each one of these weapons has different properties, from clip size to damage, but most importantly, their firing pattern. Every weapon fires at different rates, meaning they fire on different beats. Unlike BPM, Metal Hellsinger doesn't let you take actions on the half beats, so weapons like Persephone, a shotgun, have you skip 1 full beat before you can fire again. But the Hounds, a set of twin pistols, can be fired every single beat. Of course, Persephone can pack a heavier punch, especially at a close range, while the Hounds provide a steady stream of damage from a relatively safer range. Every weapon also has a chargeable special ability that builds up as you hit and kill demons standing in your way. Luckily, each weapon also feels great to use, with some even carrying some extra utility like Paz's ability to keep up your fury without hitting anything. Or Vulcan, an explosive crossbow that grants you the ability to perform a rocket jump for extra mobility across the arena. Also available to your arsenal are the unlockable boons that enhance you even further, and with the DLC's release, costumes that grant even more extra bonuses. The one-to-one gameplay of Metal Hellsinger will drop you to a level, the specific track, which can now be changed to any song available in the game's most recent update, where you'll traverse from arena to arena, slaying all the demons in your path until you reach the final boss. It's rather straightforward, but at higher difficulties where death means the end of a level and higher enemy and wave counts per arena, things can get really hectic and can sometimes turn into a battle of stamina in later levels. I originally played the game through at the Beast difficulty, only dying a few times that I can count on my fingers. But when it came to trying the next unlockable difficulty in Archdevil, I didn't pay it much mind, until I decided to try playing the whole game on this difficulty, and holy shit, is it difficult. I only managed to finish 2 levels before I had given up totally on this challenge, but this difficulty provides a lot for the game's replayability alongside the boon challenges, masteries, leaderboards, weapon skins, and gameplay mastery. Compared to BPM, Metal Hellsinger had done many things that not only improved upon the foundation that its predecessor had created, but had done several things to innovate and push the genre further in both design and gameplay. I'll only mention the biggest ones of note, as I'd be here all day if I were to talk about them all. Firstly, the biggest thing of note is the game's dynamic music. As you build fury by hitting perfects and killing demons, the music will evolve by adding more layers. First, it starts with simple drums, eventually adding more instruments as you build up your fury rating, all the way up to max fury, where the vocals of the song are finally used to tie up this present that you as a player built up to. And since the soundtrack is so good, I always desperately attempted to keep it up at max fury for as long as I could, as mistiming notes and getting hit will lower your fury rating, causing those musical layers to disappear once more. BPM, although having great music, doesn't have this dynamic layering. With Metal Hellsinger doing this, it not only actively rewards you for keeping your fury up, but it passively has you wanting to perform better and better so you can continue to hear the stellar soundtrack as you slay demons to the beat of the music. Have a listen to just a few of my favorites. Secondly, Metal Hellsinger's addition of a story gives more purpose to your actions and make you feel more involved and invested in what you're doing. BPM has an inherent story, but with Metal Hellsinger's great narration and cutscenes, it allows that investment and involvement to become more seamless. Lastly, the addition of a loadout, specifically the ability to carry multiple weapons, as well as the different movement abilities. The gameplay pushes its movement shooter side even further, by allowing both sides of this mashing of genres a chance to shine even more. BPM had great feeling weapons, but only being able to carry one at a time was fairly limiting, and since the game is a roguelike, you weren't able to appreciate certain weapons as much as you'd like due to RNG. The movement of BPM was also fairly good, but some may even prefer the more unhinged and innately faster movement of BPM, but Metal Hellsinger decided to dial it back in and move that innately fast movement speed to the dash, jump, and weapon utility, so it doesn't feel limiting or slow when doing so. Overall, Metal Hellsinger is a fantastic second entry into the genre, But this generation of rhythm shooters doesn't end here, as its brother in arms, Gun Jam, had recently released this year. Gun Jam is a game that released on April 19th, 2023, developed by Jaw Games and published by Raw Fury. While doing a little bit of research for this video, I also found some very early footage of Gun Jam way back in 2020 that showcased the concept for the game. In fact, the footage was tweeted out a few months before BPM had released, showing that the rhythm shooter concept was already being played with by multiple dev teams probably a year or two before the world even got a chance to play one. When it came to my first introduction to Gun Jam, I had played this game's demo several months back during Steam Next Fest October, genuinely enjoying my time with it and looking forward to playing what the dev team was cooking up. I followed the development of the game on Twitter and even applied for a review key, which I was granted, but as usual, this did not and will not affect my opinions of the game. Luckily though, I didn't have to wait too long before Gun Jam had been released onto Steam, and I have quite a bit to say despite not having much to talk about. To start, Gun Jam tackles the idea of a rhythm shooter much differently than that of BPM or Metal Hellsinger. BPM was a roguelike, Metal Hellsinger was more of a streamlined story-based game, and Gun Jam takes an approach that is much more arcade-like. In Gun Jam, you'll choose a song, choose a level that has a designated objective, a character with a specific super ability and difficulty, and play through the entirety of the level and song, attempting to get the highest score you possibly can. When it comes to the actual gameplay though, it takes more from the rhythm side of the rhythm shooter genre mashup than both BPM and Metal Hellsinger. Yes, your actions are timed in music, but instead of a consistent tempo, allowing you to be able to act on every beat or half beat, Gun Jam not only swaps your weapon depending on the note, but has different beat timings based on the music. Allow me to explain. You have 4 weapons that don't need to be reloaded at your disposal, but instead of being able to swap between them, they are automatically swapped based on the note appearing. Yellow corresponds to your shotgun, blue corresponds to your railgun, purple corresponds to your machine gun, and red corresponds to your explosive launcher. Each weapon fires differently, and since it'll constantly be swapping, you'll need to account for your range and positioning during the song, as your guns will have different effectiveness at different ranges. Going back to what I mean about pulling more from rhythm games than that of its kin, rhythm games are more centric and dynamic with their beat mapping. Getting perfects and keeping a higher multiplier gets you better scores, just as BPM, Metal Hellsinger, and Gun Jam does. But the two former games have a consistent beat and beat map. Gun Jam, however, has a dynamic beat mapping to its song. Is a song getting slower? Fewer notes will appear. Is a song picking up pace? More notes will appear. And this also means the number of actions you can take will constantly vary based on the music and the timestamp in the music. You do only have 2 real actions, shoot and dash, so you only really have to worry about timing those. But it now creates a choice of shoot or dash, since every note counts. The song is an infinite and will eventually end. Notes are also not just more dynamic, but hold more importance than the notes in BPM and Metal Hellsinger. Missing a note drops your multiplier and your overall clear percentage, as just like rhythm games, every note counts in Gun Jam. It's an interesting approach to the rhythm shooter genre that truly makes it so stand out amongst the 2 other games in the space. Not only this, but its soundtrack is heavily varied in genre and style. Gun Jam features a playable and banger soundtrack of EDM, trap hop, and metal. This automatically makes it stand out from the metal heavy focus of the genre, with the 2 other games in the space being entirely metal and rock focused. Take a listen to a few of the tracks. But if you aren't too into the songs provided, the game features an auto beat mapper that allows you to simply import any song you like and play it right then and there. The other 2 games, BPM and Metal Hellsinger, feature the ability to import your songs, but Gun Jam's ease of use of the system is much more appealing and user-friendly. There are also tools available to you, so you can get as in-depth with making a custom beat map as you want. Now, unfortunately, I have a few critiques and criticisms of the game. Don't get me wrong, I do enjoy Gun Jam, and I do think it is a great addition to the rhythm shooter subgenre, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a little disappointed in some areas. Firstly, the game seems to have taken a steer in direction since I first played the Steam Next Fest demo. The game had pushed its arcade-like nature even further, seemingly cutting the story mode that appeared to be coming in the game's full release with no word on if it's returning, as well as including only one checkpoint map, which was the only level type available during the demo, and was what many expected to be what the game was going to be like. Instead, the majority of playable levels were just arenas, having you just survive as long as you can while the song continues. The one checkpoint map, if you're fast enough in completing the different sections, will eventually also turn into one big endless arena. Many reviewers, mostly the negative ones, expressed this, and no one seems to know what happened behind the scenes for this to occur. But one of the developers has stated that the game had multiple shifts in its design through development, hurting the game's scope and overall development due to time restraints. Despite enjoying what I had played, I was all but ready to hang up the towel for Gun Jam until I joined the game's Discord server and learned about an open beta that stands as a testing ground for changes and patches. For this video, I decided to give it a shot, and lo and behold, there were 2 other levels available to be played, both of which were checkpoint levels, one from the demo, one from a trailer I'd seen on Twitter, and both spruced up to be visually in line with the rest of the game. In fact, the other checkpoint level from the beta is on the way as well. It's clear the devs are still getting things together. They have a foundation for a great rhythm shooter and one that is still fun and even exhilarating to play, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't need more time. It seems the community at large wants more checkpoint style maps, and it looks like that's coming, as well as many bug fixes, updates, and adjustments. There are a few changes and additions I'd like to see that would greatly improve the overall player experience in the game. I'd love to see indicators for where the remaining enemies are in a room when there are only a few left, and for which direction you were hit from on the sides of the screens, like in traditional FPS games. There have been multiple times that I've been hit by an enemy and did not know from where, which is incredibly frustrating, especially if I can't find that enemy. I'd also love to see an actual scoreboard for, well, my scores. It's surprising to me that this just isn't in the game already, especially since the game is heavily focused on getting the highest score possible. Not being able to see my best attempt not only is disappointing, but keeps me from knowing how well I've done on a certain song on a specific map. The satisfaction a player gets from knowing that they are improving is what keeps many players around and replaying songs, pushing to do even better in the next attempt. But since there's no real reward or baseline for what they want to achieve, that feeling doesn't get to exist. There also needs to be previews of the songs and the song selection as well. Currently, you have no clue what the song you're about to play sounds like until you start the level. So, if you can't remember the name of the song you wanted to play, then you run the chance of just playing a song you didn't intend to. This has happened to me multiple times, as although I like the music in the game, I haven't memorized the names of the songs. There should be previews, specifically having the background music and the song selection change based on the song you currently have selected, allowing players to know what song they're about to play. Gun Jam, although I find it to be a fun game with a solid foundation and a great take on the rhythm shooter genre, as well as a solid entry into said genre, it's a hard sell knowing the entry is $20. There was a note that someone said in Discord that the game should have released into early access, treating its current open beta branch as well as the game itself, updating content and patches to mold the game into what they intended for it to be. In fact, many of the criticisms I currently have are planned to be addressed in future updates, and I'm eager to see what the game turns out to be once things start getting together. If the devs do wind up watching this video, keep up the great work, and don't think your dedication to your game and your community is going unseen. The game is hard to recommend as it is in a decently strange albeit fun state, and you shouldn't have to join the Discord to get a code to access an open beta branch to enjoy the game as the devs intended. No matter the situation behind the scenes, that isn't fair to the players. But if you're able to look past this bump in the road, are wanting to see where the game goes while supporting the developers, or just itching to play another rhythm shooter, then Gun Jam won't disappoint. And as it stands, the next generation of rhythm shooters stands strong as the family grows by 2. I hope you enjoyed this video. It's one that I've wanted to make for quite a while, as the rhythm shooter genre stands as one of my all-time favorites. Now, what do you guys think of Metal Hellsinger and Gun Jam? Let me know down in the comments, and as usual, I'll be down there with you all. And if you did enjoy the video, consider liking the video and subscribing. A large portion of my viewers aren't, and I'd love it if you did to help support the channel. It really does help me bring you all bigger and even better videos. And as usual, my name is CrossVee, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Love y'all. Peace.